please make your way to your seats? We will begin momentarily. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susanna Neves. I'm a staff member at the Japan International Transport and Tourism Institute, USA, or JITTI. Before we begin, please note that this event will be conducted in 2 languages and that we offer simultaneous interpretation via the headsets at your seat. You will find English on channel 1 and Japanese on channel 2. If there's any problem with your headset, please find a member of our staff to assist you. Minasama, konnichiwa. JITTI no.
Hello, everybody. My name is Susanna Neves. Today, thank you so much for your participation in your busy schedule. This event is conducted in English and Japanese, and the simultaneous interpretation is provided. If you would like to use, please use the headset that is at the table. English is channel 1, Japanese is channel 2. If there's any questions, please talk to any staff members nearby. Now, the interpretation will be provided.
Event timetable, speaker bios, and guest surveys can be found through our website at jttusa.org. Guests attending in person may use the Reagan Building Wi-Fi information found on the screen to access the website. Now, please allow me to formally offer a warm welcome to everyone joining our Civil Aviation Symposium 2025. This symposium is an official participating event of the 2025 National Cherry Blossom Festival and is being held with support from the Nippon Foundation, the Embassy of Japan in the United States, and the Ronald Reagan Building and International Trade Center. We thank each of these organizations for their generous support today. To open our symposium, Mr. Masafumi Shukuri, Chairman of JITTI and the Japan Transport and Tourism Research Institute, would like to make some remarks. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Shukuri.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shukuri Masafumi, Chairman of Japan Transport and Tourism Research Institute, or JTTRI, and Japan International Transport and Tourism Institute, USA, JITTI. First, I would like to express my utmost appreciation to you who are attending this symposium in person, and to everyone who is watching online, especially from Japan and other Asian countries, despite the time difference. Second, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to His Excellency Mr. Yamada Shigeo, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to the United States of America, for joining us today during his tight schedule to play a crucial role in Japan-US relations. Next, I would like to express my special thanks to the keynote speakers, Ms. Heidi Gómez, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transportation Affairs at the U.S. Department of State, Ms. Nakayama Rieko, Assistant Vice Minister for International Aviation at the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism of Japan, and Ms. Cindy Baraban, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Aviation and International Affairs at the U.S. Department of Transportation. In addition, I am most grateful to Mr. Yap On Heng, Senior Advisor of the Ministry of Transport of Singapore, who served as Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore from 2009 to 2015, and has been actively involved in the international transport arena. Mr. Tamura Akihiko, President and CEO of Narita International Airport Corporation, and all the panelists from the public and private sectors for joining us here from Japan, the United States, and ASEAN. The panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Naveen Rao, who is well versed in Japan-US aviation relations and currently works as a policy expert in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much. Today's symposium will be hosted by JITTI USA, which was established by JTTRI and held as an official participating event of the National Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C. It is a magnificent pleasure that this symposium will be held in such a beautiful season. On the other hand, it is truly unfortunate that there have been a series of aircraft accidents around the world recently. On January 29th of this year, there was a major accident involving an aircraft and a helicopter near here, resulting in the loss of many lives. Along with the cherry blossoms on the banks of the Potomac River, we sincerely pray for the repose of the souls of those who lost their lives. In 2019, JITTI held 2 international aviation symposiums in Washington, D.C. and Tokyo, and discussed the evolution of aviation networks in the Asia-Pacific region, and the roles of Japan and the United States in that evolution. In 2023, JITTI held another International Aviation Symposium in Washington, D.C., and discussed the realization of aviation sustainability, focusing on the significance of decarbonization policy and the supply of sustainable aviation fuel, which are still the most urgent and greatest issue for aviation stakeholders around the world today. While the COVID pandemic has severely constrained global human interactions, today's air travel demand has already exceeded pre-pandemic level in many regions. The air travel demand in the Asia-Pacific region, which has been relatively slow to recover, will soon return to pre-pandemic levels and will account for more than half of the increase in global seat capacity by 2025, driving economic expansion worldwide. Meanwhile, with the shift in the global power balance, the situation in Ukraine has brought ongoing constraints on the number of flights between the United States and China. It is said that the circumstances around the aviation industry have become increasingly complex and uncertain. Therefore, strengthening aviation connectivity in this region is of vital importance to any party involved from the viewpoint of coping with such geopolitical risks as well as ensuring economic security. Against this backdrop of the rapid expansion of the aviation market in ASEAN, a key engine of global economic growth, today's symposium will discuss diverse topics such as the policies of aviation authorities to meet the growing traffic demand in the Asia-Pacific region, the development of airport infrastructure, the initiatives and the strategies of airlines, keeping in mind the keyword, aviation connectivity powered by Japan-US-ASEAN collaboration. Toward that objective, we should also consider other essential elements, including ensuring safety first and foremost, improving air traffic controller capacity, a shortage being focused on both in Japan and the United States, securing human resources for airport-related operations, such as ground handling and refueling services, and ensuring sustainability and reducing environmental impact through the use of SAF. I would be grateful if the public and private sector here with us today could honestly discuss those issues in a concerted manner. In closing, I hope this symposium will contribute to solving urgent issues which the international aviation sector currently faces and lead to enhanced trilateral connectivity, Japan, the United States, and ASEAN, in an open manner. I believe it is in line with the vision, free and open in the Pacific, the inclusive initiative to be realized through cooperation with like-minded countries based on shared values and principles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shukuri. I now have the great honor of introducing the Ambassador of Japan to the United States, Shigeo Yamada. Appointed to his current role in December 2023, Ambassador Yamada has spent much of his career building and strengthening international relations. His presence at the opening ceremony of the 2025 National Cherry Blossom Festival last week highlights the enduring friendship between the U.S. and Japan. We are deeply grateful for his recognition and support of our symposium today. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
So good afternoon, and thank you, Chairman Shukuri, for your remarks on the work you and your colleagues at JITTI and also Japan Transport and Tourism Research Institute do every day. And this is my honor to be here today with you. This audience understands very well the role that civil aviation plays, not only in transporting people and goods, but also in promoting peace and security and prosperity. So I want to express my deepest respect to everyone here today who worked so hard to maintain stable air operations with safety as the top priority. And in this regard, I'd like to join Chairman Shukuri in reiterating my condolences for the accident that occurred near Reagan Washington National Airport 2 months ago, and my gratitude to all those who responded. For Japan, as an island nation, international aviation is essential. We count on this sector to support our economic activities, tourism, and people-to-people exchanges. So I am pleased with today's theme, the future of aviation connectivity, powered by Japan-US ASEAN collaboration. Japan is strengthening our role as a key hub, connecting the United States with ASEAN countries. And as the geopolitical importance as well as the economic importance of ASEAN countries grows, it is strategically essential to strengthen connectivity in the Indo-Pacific region, including the United States. Last month, Prime Minister Ishiba visited Washington, D.C. and met with President Trump. And in their joint statement, the two leaders affirmed their determination to bring new golden age in Japan-US relations. They also reaffirmed their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific and underscored the importance of multi-layered network of like-minded countries with the Japan-US partnership at its core. This symposium and the issues you are addressing together also focuses on the importance of multilateral cooperation. Last year marked the 80th anniversary of the Chicago Convention on international civil aviation. And for 80 years, the International Civil Aviation Organization has been at the forefront of multilateral rulemaking in civil aviation. And to further strengthen Japan's commitment to the ICAO, we are proud to put forward our ambassador of ICAO mission, Ambassador Toshiyuki Onuma, as our candidate for the next council president of the organization. I would like to respectfully ask for your support. Together, I'm confident that we can aim high and travel far. As the Japan-US Tourism Year concludes this month, our nations are closer than ever. Last year, approximately 2.7 million people traveled from the United States to Japan. This is unprecedented, and the momentum continues to grow. So far this year, the number of American visitors to Japan is already 1.3 times higher than last year's record high. I believe this means that the new golden age of Japan-US relations will also include a new golden age of aviation between Japan and the United States. So I'd like to thank you all for your efforts and contributions toward that goal. So I would like to wish you all the best for a successful symposium today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Yamada, for your kind support. This symposium consists of 3 opportunities to hear from experts on the topic of aviation connectivity in the Asia-Pacific region in the form of 3 keynote speeches and 2 panel discussions, with a short coffee break to be held after the first panel. Our first keynote speaker is Heidi Gómez, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transportation Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Ms. Gómez was appointed to her current position in July 2023. She is a career member of the Senior Foreign Service with 25 years of experience serving at U.S. embassies in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Chairman Shukuri, thank you very much for your kind invitation to join you again in this important event sponsored by JITTI. Ambassador Yamada, Assistant Vice Minister Nakayama, Deputy Assistant Secretary Baraban, Senior Advisor Yap, distinguished panelists and guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the U.S. Department of State, I want to thank you for your warm welcome. I also want to thank you for the kind words, as well as your prayers for those lives that were lost in the tragic accident we faced here in our city last year. I am, as many have noted, very delighted that this year's event coincide with Washington's peak cherry blossom season. Japan's gift over 100 years ago remains an enduring symbol of our friendship and shared cultural heritage. For over 7 decades, the U.S.-Japan alliance has stood as a pillar of peace, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. Together, we are forging a global partnership adept at addressing the intricate and interconnected challenges of today and tomorrow, benefiting not only our 2 nations, but the entire world. As close economic partners, the United States and Japan are the largest sources of foreign direct investment in each other's countries, creating high-quality jobs and fostering economic growth. We are eager to realize the ambitious economic vision articulated by President Trump and Prime Minister Ishiba at the recent U.S.-Japan leaders meeting. During that meeting, our leaders committed to furthering business opportunities, strengthening our industrial bases, and leading the world in the development of critical technologies. Prime Minister Ishiba announced a bold vision to increase cumulative Japanese investment in the U.S. economy to over $1 trillion. A cornerstone of our economic cooperation is our bilateral aviation relationship, which facilitates trade, travel, tourism, and investment. International aviation policy transcends the aviation sector, serving broader bilateral interests. Enhanced air transport linkages, for example, stimulate the growth of other industries and enable the expansion of international business, which powers both of our economies. This macroeconomic growth fortifies our bilateral economic relationship and ultimately our security alliance. Air connectivity brings people, cultures, and businesses closer together. Just last month, I had the honor of leading the U.S. delegation to Tokyo to discuss strengthening our aviation partnership and exploring the further liberalization of Haneda Tokyo International Airport. I deeply appreciate the generous hospitality and exemplary leadership demonstrated by Vice Minister Nakayama and the entire Japanese delegation during those discussions. The future of aviation connectivity throughout the Indo-Pacific hinges on the robust partnership between the United States and Japan, as well as our collaboration through ASEAN and other fora. Japan is poised to play a pivotal role in the growth of aviation and the advancement of tourism in the Indo-Pacific region in the coming decade. This promising future is made possible by stakeholders like JITTI and the people in this room, and those who are viewing overseas, who are dedicated to exploring new avenues for expanding travel to, from, and beyond the region. Meanwhile, Southeast Asia's strategic location, favorable demographics, and rapidly growing economies present immense commercial, trade, and investment opportunities for the United States. Our engagement with ASEAN enhances American prosperity by tapping into these opportunities and the region's tremendous economic growth potential. In fact, the United States exports nearly $160 billion in goods and services to ASEAN regionally. Annually, I should say. Air cargo plays a crucial role in transporting high-value and time-sensitive goods, such as intermediate goods and components, between the United States and ASEAN. This ensures that essential parts and materials reach manufacturers promptly, facilitating seamless production and supporting critical supply chains across various industries. All cargo Seventh Freedom traffic rights further improve air cargo services by increasing connectivity and flexibility, helping carriers reach new commercial markets. I'm proud to note that our air transport agreements with 7 ASEAN countries provide reciprocal Seventh Freedom cargo rights, and we hope that others join in the future. In terms of international passenger travel, visitors from ASEAN add over $3.5 billion annually to the U.S. economy. The United States is committed to expanding air service to new countries, opening destinations for both goods and people. U.S. Open Skies policy also allows for open code sharing, leasing, and other commercial arrangements that enhance air carriers' operational flexibility. These opportunities benefit new entrants seeking to establish air services to new markets, including airlines throughout ASEAN and the broader Indo-Pacific region. Continued growth in regional air connectivity will bolster U.S., Japan, and ASEAN linkages while expanding opportunities for trade and investment. To promote enhanced air connectivity and facilitate increased passenger and cargo flights between, among, and beyond the United States and the Indo-Pacific, the United States welcomes more members from ASEAN and Pacific Island countries to become Open Skies partners through bilateral or existing multilateral air transportation agreements. Currently, the United States has modernized agreements with 6 out of the 10 ASEAN member states, and we are actively working with 2 additional partners to modernize existing agreements in line with U.S. Open Skies principles. Additionally, the United States has modernized agreements with 6 Pacific Island countries, and in fact, last August, we concluded a new bilateral open skies agreement with Fiji, which led to the immediate expansion of commercial relationships between U.S. airlines and Fiji Airways. In December, Fiji Airways commenced a nonstop flight to Dallas-Fort Worth, opening new tourism markets. These agreements facilitated increased trade and economic exchange throughout the region, bringing more business travelers, tourists, exchange students, and other visitors. They also bolster economic development, global supply chains, and investment by expanding opportunities for airlines, travel companies, and consumers across the region. We also advocate for increased international air connectivity to and from U.S. states and territories across the Pacific, including American Samoa, Guam, Hawaii, and the Northern Mariana Islands. Through our compacts of free association with Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, and Palau, the United States continues to support efforts to promote economic growth and commercial development while fostering technical collaboration to ensure aviation safety and security throughout the region. Last June, the United States hosted a 14-country Indo-Pacific delegation to showcase cutting-edge aviation security technologies and best practices. This event connected governments and business leaders to discuss innovations and opportunities to keep the skies safe and secure. Looking ahead, we are exploring regional cooperation in areas such as unmanned aircraft systems and commercial space. We look forward to working with Japan and our partners at events like these to expand air connectivity across the region, promote aviation safety and security agreements with our Indo-Pacific partners, and support resilience efforts critical to maintaining regional supply chains as well as commercial development. So once again, thank you, Chairman Shukuri, for hosting this symposium today. With your leadership and the dedication of the stakeholders gathered here, the future of aviation connectivity throughout the Indo-Pacific region is very bright. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gómez. Our next speaker will be Rieko Nakayama, Assistant Vice Minister for International Aviation, Minister's Secretariat in the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism of Japan. Ms. Nakayama has continuously worked in the MLIT since 1994, where she has held crucial positions, including Senior Officer for Air Talks in the International Air Transport Division, Director of the International Policy Division in the Policy Bureau, and Executive Vice President of the Japan National Tourism Organization. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Nakayama to the stage.
Good afternoon, Mr. Masafumi Shukuri, Chairman of JTTRI and JITTI, and Your Excellency Shigeo Yamada, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to the United States, and Ms. Gómez, Ms. Barban, and Mr. Yap, and distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Chairman Shukuri and JTTRI, JTTRI, for inviting me to such a wonderful symposium. And it is a great honor for me to deliver a keynote speech here today. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to express my opportunity to express my deepest condolences to deliver to those who lost their lives in recent plane crash in Washington, D.C. Well, cherry blossoms has just started to bloom in Tokyo, and seeing them at their peak here in Washington, D.C., as well reminds me of the depths of the bonds that Japan and the United States have built over the years. So in this keynote speech, I would like to share recent trends in international aviation in Japan with you, followed by our own initiatives, as well as collaborative efforts with US and ASEAN countries to enhance sustainable aviation connectivity. Could you help me to change slides? That way? Okay. So let me start with an overview of the post-pandemic trend of international aviation in Japan. As of the beginning of the 2024 winter schedule, overall, it finally recovered to the pre-pandemic levels. In particular, the number of flights to and from Japan in the Asia-Oceania region, shown in green, has even exceeded pre-pandemic levels. And since such a strong recovery has been mainly driven by ever-increasing international tourists visiting Japan, in 2024, we welcomed a record high of approximately 33 million visitors. So this year has started even better, with international visitors in January and February up by almost 30% compared to the same months last year. So Japanese government has set a goal of increasing the number of international visitors to Japan to 60 million by 2030, and international air travel demand is expected to increase further over the next few years. Japan also serves as a transit point connecting Asia and the Americas. So according to data from Narita, Haneda, and Kansai International Airport, approximately 4.5 million international passengers used these airports as transit points in 2024. So furthermore, after the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of passengers who travel between North America and ASEAN countries via Japan has also increased. So today, I would like to introduce some of the efforts we are making to accommodate this growing demand for international aviation and enhance connectivity between ASEAN, Japan, and the United States. So first, expansion of airport capacity. So the latest capacity expansion project is a large-scale renovation of a passenger terminal of Kansai International Airport. So which is scheduled to open just tomorrow and will be able to accommodate approximately 40 million international passengers in total per year. And also last year, Narita Airport also announced new expansion plans to further enhance its functions. I believe that President Tamura of Narita Airport Company is here today, so we'll kindly share more details on this with us later. And our efforts to expand airport capacity are not limited to Japan. So we are involved in numerous airport development projects in ASEAN countries, helping to strengthen air traffic within and outside the region. So the airports shown on the slides are ones that Japan helped to build and operate using ODA loans and technical cooperation, as well as through concession. So our cooperation is also extending to other Asian countries, including Chinggis Khan International Airport in Mongolia and the Hazrat Shahjalal International Airport in Bangladesh. So second, more efficient use of airspace and enhanced air traffic flow management. For the sustainable development of aviation networks, not only airport capacity expansion, but also safe, smooth, and efficient traffic management is inevitable. So we made a long-term action plan on the development of the air traffic system called CARATS in 2010, which is currently being reviewed with a new target of 2040. So one of the main initiatives of CARAT is the introduction of new air traffic management method called trajectory-based operation, or TBO. So this would enable optimal routing throughout the entire journey based on real-time weather information, which would secure safer and more comfortable flights and more efficient use of airspace to help reduce fuel consumption and then contributes to carbon neutrality. So most importantly, a collaboration and cooperation among the countries concerned are essential to realize this method. And in 2023, to verify the feasibility of TBO, this new method, aviation service providers from 4 countries, the United States, Japan, Singapore, and Thailand, as well as Boeing, jointly conducted the first test flight. So we are now moving on to the next step called the APAC TBO Pathfinder project, which we launched last year with participation of aviation service providers from, this time, 10 countries. So finally, decarbonization to make such ever-expanding aviation network sustainable and then achieve carbon neutrality in the aviation sector by 2050. So sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, will play a key role in achieving this goal. So that is why Japan is now working hard to ensure a stable domestic production of internationally competitive SAF. As one of our initiatives, we established a public-private council consisting of airlines, oil companies, and relevant ministries to set demand and supply targets of SAF. So this would make future SAF demand more predictable and then facilitate SAF production. So at the same time, Japanese government introduced both regulations and support measures about SAF usage and production, while imposing specific supply and usage target by 2030. The Japanese government is providing various financial support to SAF production. In April, just next month, the first SAF production plant is scheduled to start operation in Japan. So we would like to continue working on to strengthen sustainable aviation connectivity among ASEAN, Japan, and the United States. So I look forward to deeper and more lively discussion with you all in the panel discussion later on. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Nakayama. Our next speaker will be Cindy Baraban, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Aviation and International Affairs at the U.S. Department of Transportation. Ms. Barban has previously served as the Senior Advisor to the Assistant Secretary for Aviation and International Affairs and as the Deputy Assistant General Counsel for the Office of Operations in the Office of the General Counsel at the DOT. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the Japanese International Transport and Tourism Institute for inviting me to represent the U.S. Department of Transportation at today's event. As many of you know, DOT and JITTI have a long history of cooperation, so I'm very happy to participate in this important discussion and hosted by such a prestigious institution. I would also like to personally thank Chairman Shukuri and his team for organizing this event. I would also like to acknowledge His Excellency Ambassador Yamada, Deputy Assistant Secretary Gómez, and Assistant Vice Minister Nakayama for your tireless efforts in strengthening U.S.-Japan bilateral ties. Those of us in Washington, D.C. have the opportunity to see the blossoming of the cherry trees every year. It's quite a gift. and it's a beautiful reminder of the enduring friendship between our two countries. I also would like to thank you very much for your kind words and condolences on the accidents and the lives lost. I think that shows also the deepness of our connection. Much of today's discussion will focus on the continuing recovery in the trans-Pacific market. DOT data supports that trend, which shows encouraging growth towards reaching pre-pandemic levels soon. According to year-end September 2024 DOT data, 9.2 million passengers traveled between the United States and Japan. That's up 25% compared to 2023, but still 13% short of 2019 levels. Nevertheless, Japan maintains the top spot as the largest U.S. passenger gateway to Asia. Much of this traffic, of course, naturally flows to and from Tokyo, served by two airports, Haneda and Narita. Japan's commitment to growing Haneda as a gateway ahead of the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics was remarkable, and we look forward to continuing our critical work with JCAB to maximize the utility of the airport in the context of the U.S.-Japan market, given its increasing prominence as an international gateway hub. Likewise, Japan's efforts to bolster Narita as a hub has allowed it to maintain critical connectivity between the United States and other parts of Asia-Pacific region, particularly Southeast Asia. ASEAN is estimated to be one of the fastest growing regions for air travel. According to 2024 annual visitor arrival data, if you look at travelers from the top 15 countries after Japan and the United States that rely on Narita to get to the United States, about half were residents of ASEAN. So as we look forward to increases in nonstop flights between the United States and ASEAN, Narita's role in air connectivity cannot be overstated. We have recently seen signs of new growth between the United States, Narita, and beyond. Recently launched or future services include new flights between Seattle and Narita, Chicago and Narita, Houston and Narita, and beyond Narita to points in Philippines, Mongolia, Taiwan, and Palau. In the meantime, new players have entered the field as well, from Alaska and Hawaiian Airlines' planned expansion to Zip Air's recent market entry, providing differentiated fee options for consumers. As we look to the future, we see significant opportunities for a stronger, more competitive U.S.-Japan market. Key to ensuring that continued success and ensuring that the market remains the backbone of trans-Pacific connectivity will be ensuring that airlines have maximum flexibility to establish services that respond to consumer and business demand. The primary remaining obstacle is Haneda. Recognizing the unique circumstances surrounding Haneda, specifically the Japanese government's landmark decision 15 years ago to reopen the airport to long-haul international traffic, our governments have been working tirelessly for many years to integrate Haneda into our bilateral open skies relationship. This work comes with challenges, and we've been faced with delay due to the pandemic. As Deputy Assistant Secretary Gómez noted, we held talks last month with JCAB to get our work back on track. And while we've made some encouraging progress with respect to considering a new potential timeline for the further liberalization of Haneda, we have yet to establish a clear path toward realization of all of the necessary components of the Haneda liberalization that our governments mutually agreed to in 2019. So I'll underscore once again the importance that we attach to a swift conclusion to this work to ensure that the U.S.-Japan aviation relationship remains the engine of growth, connectivity, and prosperity that it is today. So on behalf of the Department of Transportation, I thank you all for being here, for your time. I know that the discussions that we will have to further dive into aviation and addressing the challenges that we have will be informative and constructive, and I'm always inspired also by these gatherings. It allows us to support the industry that connects us, but it's also always a good thing to be in the same room with people that are filled with the same enthusiasm that aviation brings out in all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Baraban. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please permit us a moment as we conduct a brief change in the staging. We will shortly begin our first panel discussion and kindly ask that the moderator, Mr. Rao, and panelists, Ms. Barban, Mr. Tamura, Mr. Morrissey, and Mr. Koyama, please make their way to the stage at this time. We thank you all for your patience. We're on the floor if you would. The theme for this first panel is Enhancing Aviation Networks in the Asia-Pacific region. Moderating this discussion is Naveen Rao, Principal of H4 Advisors, LLC. Mr. Rao has an extensive background in the international aviation policy. His time at the Federal Aviation Administration led to assignments working with the Japanese Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, Japan Fair Trade Commission, and All Nippon Airways in Tokyo. He later served as counsel on the Subcommittee on Aviation in the U.S. House of Representatives and as Senior Regulatory Affairs Counsel at Atlas Air before starting the aviation industry consulting firm H4 Advisors. I will now turn the time over to him when he is ready to begin to introduce each panelist and begin this section of the program.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Naveen Rao. I want to add my welcome to everyone attending, and also my thanks to Chairman Shukuri and the staff of the Japan International Transport and Tourism Institute for hosting this program today. So, as you've seen, we have two panels. The first panel will be a focus on expanding the opportunities between and among Japan, the United States, and the ASEAN countries, and expanding it from the perspective of public policy, commercial considerations, and in a broader global context. The second panel, which will follow the coffee break, we're going to pivot and talk about specific challenges towards realizing them. So what the challenges are, and a discussion on how these challenges can be met. Before we begin, give you a little bit of context about this, just a context to preface both of these panels. So, international civil aviation exists in a broader context. It is, among other things, an instrument of diplomacy and soft power. It supports commerce in different forms, things like supply chains, things like multinational service firms. It supports tourism, exchange, visiting family and friends in a scale that unlike any other form of transportation. In recent years, since the last time JITTI held a symposium like this one, a number of things have happened, as we're all aware. First, we had a global pandemic. the first global pandemic of the jet age, meaning the last time we had a pandemic of this nature. There weren't things such as just-in-time supply chains. There weren't things like, the economy in the world looked very different, so we had that. Since that time, we've had an uneven recovery in markets. So we have seen in some places travel demand to levels before the pandemic, but in other parts of the world, they still remain slow for a number of reasons. The other big change and ongoing factor that's affecting commercial aviation is, of course, the war that broke out in Europe, the first major land war of its kind in nearly 80 years. So there's a lot to talk about, and today we are fortunate to have a really distinguished panel. You will see their bios in your informational materials. I was struck by many of them for various reasons. So we have Cindy Barban, Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. DOT for Aviation and International Affairs, Mr. Tamura from the CEO of Narita International Airport, Steve Morrissey, Vice President, Regulatory Policy at United Airlines, and Mr. Koyama from Japan Airlines, Executive Vice President for Corporate Strategy. What's really what I find interesting about each of them is their varied backgrounds. In the case of Cindy, having a distinguished practice as an attorney in private practice, having worked and lived overseas. Mr. Tamura has had a storied career at his ministry in many roles, including serving in the Japanese embassy in Washington, and Steve as an official at the U.S. DOT, and Koyama-san, a career at Japan Airlines in many capacities, including serving in the United Kingdom, leading their efforts there, and also in Japan Airlines COVID recovery efforts. So with that, we're going to begin. So Cindy just delivered a keynote, some keynote remarks. Starting with Mr. Tamura, they're going to make some brief presentations. After the presentations, we'll launch into a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Not evening, good afternoon. Well, thank you. I'd like to thank JITTI for giving me this precious opportunity. I'd like to talk about our current situation and the future our expansion project of the Narita International Airport. Well, according to the IATA, our global aviation demand is expected to double within the next 20 years. Among all regions, Asia-Pacific market is projected to experience the fastest growth, with an average annual growth rate exceeding 5%. And another aviation-related organization, Airports Council International, or ACI, predicts that despite Japan's population shrinkage, our aviation demand in the country will continue to grow. ACI forecasts that Japan will maintain a prominent global position over the next 20 to 30 years in terms of passenger numbers and the traffic volume. And interestingly, the Tokyo metropolitan area still ranks as the world's most populous urban region, larger than Delhi or Shanghai. This holds true, even though Japan's overall population is decreasing. And as you know, Tokyo is served by two major airports, Haneda and Narita. Regarding our international cargo handled in Japan, air transportation accounts for only 0.4% of the total weight. However, when measured by value, air cargo represents 25% of the total, highlighting its significance in transporting high-value goods. Among all seaports and airports in Japan, Narita Airport stands out as the largest trading hub for both imports and exports. By the way, the Narita Airport handles about 70% of the overall international air cargo. The chart on the left illustrates the monthly trends in international flight arrivals and the departures at Narita, Kansai, and Haneda airports. While international flights at Haneda have increased since the summer 2023 schedule, the airport faces capacity constraints. Consequently, recent growth in demand has been absorbed by Narita and Kansai. Considering the expected increase in demand, it is essential to enhance the airport capacity in the Tokyo metropolitan area. However, there's little room for expansion at the Haneda Airport. For this reason, the Japanese government is advancing a project to construct a new runway at the Narita Airport, where expansion is still feasible. By constructing the new third runway and extending the second runway, Narita will increase annual slots from 300,000 to 500,000. Building a new runway alone is not enough. Passenger and cargo terminals must also be upgraded. Incorporating automation and labor-saving technology as possible to achieve a maximum productivity and efficiency improvements. We aim to improve railway access to ensure that travel from the airport to the center of Tokyo can be completed in approximately 30 minutes. An airport city will be developed in the surrounding areas to attract industries that are well suited to aviation. The conceptual image of the new Narita Airport is as shown in this slide. Well, the three terminals will be consolidated to one terminal, and the newer cargo terminal will be constructed near the expressway, and that way the cargo terminal will be very convenient for our shippers. And also inside the facilities, automation will be promoted to the maximum level that will make the terminal very efficient and productive. Well, that's my presentation. Thank you very much for your listening.
So next, we're going to hear from Steve Morrissey from United Airlines.
Thank you very much, Naveen. Appreciate you being here today and all that you've done to add to this relationship over the course of many years. You're one of the true experts in international aviation in Washington. Glad to be with you today. Before I get into my presentation, I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Chairman Shukuri and the JITTI team. This is an incredibly well-organized conference, down to the timing of holding it on the days of peak bloom of the cherry blossoms, one of the most difficult things to nail, and something that's talked about for months in Washington, and you nailed it. So thank you for that. The title of the symposium, Future of Aviation Connectivity, powered by Japan-US ASEAN collaboration. United, you may have heard me say before, and certainly heard others say, that we have a slogan. Our mission is to connect people and unite the world. And we take that to heart every single day. Connection is at the heart of what we do. So as I get into my presentation, I ask you to keep two phrases in mind. First is the importance of networks, the power of networks, and secondly, the importance and power of connections. Connection, I asked my colleague Ito-san for translation, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, Ito, but help me out. Connection to Nagari. Good? All right. And by the way, Ito-san and Dan Weiss, my colleagues from United Airlines here, who helped put together this presentation, including the Japanese translation. So thank you very much for that. So, importance of network, importance of connections. To Nagari. And the clicker, thank you. No problem. Okay, so importance of networks. When I say the future of connectivity is now, goes back to that phrase, connecting people. It's what we do every day. United operates the largest U.S. Asia-Pacific network in the industry. I'd ask you to concentrate on some of the key numbers. 30 trans-Pacific routes, 60 trans-Pacific departures per day, 21 Asia-Pacific destinations. And in terms of Japan, 7. I'll stop a minute so folks can absorb the slide and the map. Moving to Japan, 9, 4, and 18. 9 U.S. gateways, 4 Japanese gateways, including Narita and Haneda, and up to 18 U.S. mainland flights, 15 Tokyo only. Again, pause for a second for all to take in. I was going to say enjoy, but this is where I want to stress connectivity. Heidi and Cindy and other speakers have talked about the Indo-Pacific and ASEAN. Power of connections, power of network. United has taken a relatively unusual new step in recent weeks, announcing new destinations from Tokyo to points off of the U.S. mainland, including Philippines, Taiwan, Palau, and Mongolia. These are enabled by our unique network, our unique presence of having a Boeing 737 base, pilots and planes on Guam. And these are markets that are not served by our partner ANA either. So bringing the network and connectivity to new destinations, we're trying to drive the future, not wait for it to develop. I swear this says the same thing, just in Japanese. When it comes right down to it, I heard someone say once that without customers, there'd be no air travel, meaning that no one flies, or very few people fly for the joy of flying only. I'm sure there's some people in this room that do. People fly to get somewhere, for business, for family, for vacation, for important moments in their lives. So part of the power of the network at United, the power of connection, is to provide as many options for our customers, no matter where they are or where they're going. And so we've got what we believe is an unrivaled network serving both Tokyo, Haneda, and Tokyo, Narita. That's for those travelers connecting via downtown or destined for downtown, or connecting via ANA's impressive Haneda hub, or Narita for travelers northeast of Tokyo and for connections across the Asia Pacific. You can see on the slide, the blue dots are Tokyo Haneda destinations, black are Narita, and green are both from our U.S. gateways. I want to give a special shout out to our partnership with with ANA. And I see my friend Tadashi Matsushita here today, a true leader in international airline government affairs. So good to see you and welcome to Washington. It's one of the most consequential partnerships in international aviation, and we're so proud to be your partner. To wrap it up, this is really about preserving and driving that leadership role in the Asia Pacific. The numbers that previous speakers showed are a testament to the power of the relationship. Back to the comment about people traveling for a reason. There's a reason why the market is robust right now. It's because if the pandemic taught us one thing, it's that human connection will never be replaced by video. It's our nature to travel. And two countries of such consequence for so many reasons, US and Japan, we're proving that point today. I appreciate the focus on infrastructure as well. Status quo is not acceptable in terms of developing the worldwide infrastructure for air travel. And that's not just concrete and runways, that's air traffic infrastructure as well, which is a big priority for United here in the United States and around the globe. Sustainability, environmental sustainability, whatever we call it, whether it's synthetic, whether it's sustainable, whether it's energy security, it's vitally important for the future. And then finally, we all have to be working together to ensure equitable access to airports, for airlines on behalf of our customers. And with that, after I pause for another minute, thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you, Steve. Turn it over to Koyama-san of Japan Airlines.
Thank you for the great opportunity to present at this symposium. I'd like to introduce our effort to strengthen the JAL Group's route network. First of all, let me give you a brief introduction to JAL again. JAL was the first Japanese airline to open an international route in 1954 with the Tokyo, Honolulu, San Francisco route. As of the end of May 2024, the JAL Group operates domestic flight to 64 airports and the international flight to 386 airports, including codeshare flight. Next, I will introduce a change in the business environment. In terms of passenger revenue for the full-service carriers business for the fiscal year 2025, which begins in April for Japan, domestic flight at 105% compared to pre-COVID, while international route at 135% on the back of fire airfares. The international route business is expected to grow significantly in the future. It is also becoming increasingly important in our business strategy. In particular, the number of foreign visitors to Japan has been growing steadily since before COVID, while the Japanese population has been in period of decline after COVID. The number has been growing rapidly again, and the government has set target 60 million visitors per year to Japan by 2030, which will put Japan in the top 5 in the world. For this reason, the inbound market to Japan has become a promising growth area in the international business. We have joint business with our oneworld partners in markets around the world, including Europe and Asia. And in recent years, we have also expanded our partnership beyond oneworld carriers. Within that overall strategy, North America is our most important region on international routes. We maximize our makes share by utilize the Pacific joint business with American Airlines. In addition to code share that include non-verbal partners. As part of the joint business, American Airlines commenced a daily flight from Haneda to New York last June. A new JAL flight from Narita to Chicago will be launched from June this year. In addition, the newest aircraft of a fleet, the Airbus A350-1000 has been deployed on the New York and Dallas route since last year, and from the upcoming 2025, we will introduce A350 to Los Angeles. It is also important to capture the growth of the Asian market as well as the point-to-point market between Japan and North America. According to one Japanese research organization, global passenger demand will grow at a compound annual growth rate of 3.4% through to the 2040, with Asian expect to have the highest growth rate by region. In particular, with the growth rate of passenger demand to and from Japan has been 110% from 2017 to 2024. Demand between Asia and North America has shown growth of 119% for the same period, which offered us a great opportunity to target this demand, taking advantage of Japan's geographic location. In response to this, the JAL Group is utilizing the Haneda Airport as a hub for domestic and the international flight, and the Narita Airport as a hub for international flight connecting between North America and Asia and other destinations. We are developing a route network that takes advantage of future of each airport. With Narita as a hub, the JAL Group is also transforming our operation by offering 3 LCC brands, in addition to the existing FSC brands, in accordance with the future of each market. JETSOSA Japan, which focuses on the domestic and short-haul Asia, and the Spring Japan, which serves city in China, and JITTI. JITTI is Japan's first medium to long-haul international LCC, operating Boeing 777-8 aircraft. JITTI currently flies to 10 destinations, mainly in North America and Asia. They recently launched a new route, Narita, Houston, earlier this month, on 4th March. JITTI plans to further expand its network by introducing Boeing 777-9 from 2027. In addition to pricing, JITTI is developing demand that is different from the JAL brand by offering services which make it stand out more as an LCC, such as a full flat seat and free Wi-Fi. This will broaden the diversity of the customer base across the JAL Group as a whole, and may lead to the greater separation between FSC and LCC in the future. In this way, JAL Group is responding to the growing market of Asia and North America, not only by Japan, not only meaning to Japan business demand through the full service carriers proposition, which has been its focus, but also by expanding effort to meet inbound market, transit market, and LCC market, and use the joint business and code-share partners. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you, Koyama-san, and thank you everybody for sharing your perspectives of your respective organizations. So we're going to move into our discussion right now. So this discussion is going to consist of a few questions we prepared ahead of time, but also we're going to try to get to questions that we received from the audience. So we're going to try to include one of those. Thank you all for submitting those ideas. Greatly appreciated. So in my opening remarks, I talked about a few things about where we are, where the industry is, where the world is. And one thing I mentioned specifically was this idea of a uneven recovery in markets. One of the areas where we've seen that is the direct market for services between the United States and China. And in fact, I think just last Friday, Cindy's office issued what are called dormancy waivers that allow airlines to retain traffic rights that are not currently in use. So United, American, and Delta Airlines each have rights to serve China, but because of commercial reasons, they're just not viable at the moment. So with that backdrop in mind, I want to direct a question starting with Koyama-san and Tamura-san about how does this circumstance, this kind of uneven recovery, this weakened demand between the U.S. and China, affect the role of Japan and the airports within Japan and the airlines of Japan, these regions?
Thank you very much. I'd like to speak in Japanese. So regarding the direct flights restricted between the United States and China, so it's now down to 30% or so. That is my recognition. And so there are some flights connecting in China. It was limited, but now it's 6 times higher than before. And then also flights between United States and China, larger aircraft are also connecting in Japan. And so that means that we are seeing a higher or harder competition in Japan as well. And then also due to the Ukraine war, China has been really aggressive in terms of introducing larger aircraft for their flights as well. So aviation networks can be influenced hugely by geopolitical issues. And so I think that you're right in terms of talking about geopolitical issues as well. And then so Japan working as a hub for the global network, I think that we'd like to utilize Narita Airport for further improvements as well.
Please.
Yes. Well, there are political and economic tensions between the United States and China. Will they continue or for the foreseeable future? And well, actually, those tensions will have various impacts on the economy and politics all over the world. And well, China has developed to be a factory for the American companies and the global enterprises. And well, all those global enterprises have started reassessing their supply chains. And well, of course, we can't ignore or we will not be able to ignore the presence of China in the future. But some of the role as a global or the factory of the world will shift to the Southeast Asia or the India, and well, and maybe for summer products or the components that will require the advanced technology. Maybe the East Asia, including Japan, will be one of the options as a production basis. And so they are located just midway between the Asia, Southeast Asia, and North America, the role of Japan will increase in the future, especially for their civil aviation hub. And so it's very important to expand the capacity of our Japanese airports, especially in Narita, will be very important, not only for Japan, but also for the global economy, I believe.
Oh, great, thank you very much. And Steve, as one of the recipients of a dormancy waiver, would you like to add any comments? And then I'll turn it over to Cindy as well for any thoughts.
Thank you, Naveen. And it reminds me I should start by thanking Cindy and Heidi and their teams, not just for approving the dormancy waiver. I think that's because we just made strong arguments, right? No, for their dedication to the mission. You know, they were at it through the pandemic. They remain at it today through political turmoil, and we owe them a debt of gratitude for their commitment to mission and commitment to service. This issue is a perfect example of that too. Prior to the pandemic, United was and hopes to one day again be the leading airline between the U.S. and China. For lots of well-known reasons, primarily because of the lack of access to Russian airspace, which is a geopolitical issue that has nothing to do with U.S.-China relations. Well, nothing directly to do. And because passenger demand between China and the U.S. has not recovered, we are unable to restore our schedule. It's one of the truisms that we believe that capacity follows demand, not the other way around. And until demand for air travel between the two countries recovers, we really appreciate that the U.S. government has taken a direct approach to not allow the demands of the Chinese government to increase supply beyond what demand dictates. And that's been a hard position to hold at times, but they have held it, and it's imperative to the international competitiveness of the U.S. industry. So thank you for that. The solutions are easy, and we only need to look to the recovery of the U.S.-Japan market. We need to give people, again, a reason to fly again, and they will. Capacity will follow, supply will follow demand, and we'll be ready to serve it. Until then, back to the power of networks, having strong networks by U.S. airlines, Japanese airlines in partnership builds a more resilient air travel structure for the entire world, and we're very fortunate to have that connection and that power of those networks.
Thank you, Steve. So actually, with a eye on our time, I'm going to actually pivot to our next question here, and this one is for Cindy. So as we all know, government policy uniquely shapes the marketplace for aviation. It's a highly regulated industry, not only from a safety standpoint, but economically. And that's especially so in the international marketplace with a variety of bilaterals and multilateral agreements. So Cindy, question for you, and I'll have others comment as well. What policy priorities does DOT seek to advance when thinking about strengthening aviation networks among Japan, the US, and ASEAN? And how do you measure success or the need for change?
Thank you very much. So our policy has really been in place since 1992 with the creation of our U.S. Open Skies policy. And that really allowed us to bring a balanced approach aimed at maximizing public interest and enabling a strong aviation network internationally. And so, our transition to an open skies it's been 30 years. It took us a while to get there, and now it's been in place for a good bit. And it's really represented a paradigm shift in how we viewed international air transportation with a focus on the significant economic benefits that flow from having a wide set of stakeholders and economic sectors that are supported by the increased international air transportation and connectivity. So, we've really seen a lot of growth in the in the international aviation sector since 1992, and that is a measure of success. So measuring it is simple. It's that growth as well as the greater connectivity. We have more flights, we have more passengers, we have more destinations. And so I think that right there is a testament to the success of our 30-year and going open skies policy.
Thank you, Cindy. So those are really, it's a great outline of the things that DOT thinks about. So Tamura-san and Koyama-san and Steve, you all are on the other side of this. You all have, from a commercial standpoint, you advocate for your airports or your airlines to ensure that your commercial policies are consistent with public policy imperatives. What are your thoughts on one, with your respective governments in Japan and the U.S., about the policy priorities, how they're implemented, and what's that interface look like between commercial and public policy?
Well, that's a very good question. Narita Airport is owned by the Japanese government 100%. So we can't be allowed to be kind of inconsistent with the public policy. And I think I explained about the expansion program of the Narita Airport, but I think that will be consistent with the enhancement or the development of the civil aviation relationship between the United States and Japan, and also the ASEAN countries through Japan and the United States. And I think that will be consistent with the public policy once again.
Thank you. Steve, would you like to add some thoughts?
I'd be glad to go next. I have a corporate secret to share. United has a policy and regulatory agenda. And Ronce and Bob, could I ask you to close your ears for a second? No, this is not anything that's going to surprise anybody. We've got three main priorities. First is, and this is primarily a U.S. domestic priority, but it counts around the world too, is to revitalize the air traffic control system. We believe it's the most impactful thing the government can do for air travelers, operators, and communities in the policy space. So fixing air traffic control is number one. We're very, very pleased by the focus and action that's being taken on that here in the United States and around the world. The second, and I referred to this a little bit when talking about Russian airspace ban and flights to China, is international competitiveness. Things like a government favoring airlines from home countries or from like-minded countries that impact competitiveness, like airlines from India, from Hong Kong, growing service to the United States, by virtue of their continued access to Russian airspace. That's a very important issue that we take very seriously, and we're talking to our leadership about that, not just here, but around the world as well. The final bucket I would call innovation and technology. And that spans a lot of things, but it has to do with new ways of doing business, looking at the way we operate with a critical eye, make sure it's modern, make sure we're leveraging the best technology, make sure we're designing our systems for the present and the future to be as efficient as we can. And also, I would say sustainability falls into this innovation and investment bucket as well. United is in all airlines represented in this room are very focused on investing in sustainability, both to operate more cleanly and better, but also to make sure we have certainty of fuel supply well into the future, and so we can continue to grow. So that's an outline of our policy and regulatory agenda. I'd ask you to please not talk to my competitors about that too much.
Koyama-san, would you like to add something?
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, in terms of the what is the Japanese government is really strongly promoting is increasing the numbers of inbound travelers to Japan, and with that, Tokyo as well as Kansai, these are the two areas where the foreign travelers tend to focus. So, given that context, our hope is that more and more foreign travelers will be more attracted by other cities outside of Tokyo and Kansai. And so this is the area that the Japanese government, as well as the private sectors, are cooperating together. Towards the goal of 60 million travelers or tourists, we are working hard as alongside with each other. And then just looking far out in the future, we need to look at the SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel topic. You see, this is really still something that we have a set goal of. However, this is quite an expensive option, and therefore we do have to really work towards increasing the volume of SAF, as well as just securing them and in a sustainable manner. These are the areas that we would like to work towards.
Hey, we are just keeping an eye on time here, and we're going to try to jump to one more discussion question and then maybe to one of the audience questions. So the last discussion question I'm going to ask, I'm going to actually turn back to our airline participants on this one, because this one was actually kind of interest to me personally. Going back a few years, maybe about 20, 30 years, this market looked very different. And what I mean by that is if you went to Tokyo in the mid-1990s, it looked like you could confuse it for O'Hare or Detroit, meaning that there were a lot of United Airlines aircraft and a lot of Northwest aircraft, and they were using, I think a lot of you are familiar with the idea of fifth freedom, which just means a commercial right to stop somewhere in a different country, pick up and drop off passengers, and keep going to yet another country. Since that time, things changed. Aircraft have been able to fly longer, 16, 17 hours in some cases. Alliances have formed. And so going back to something that I think, Steve, you talked about, or one of our keynotes talked about, very recently, so United obviously flies very long-distance flights from Singapore on its own. It has a great partner in All Nippon Airways. But you've also, United announced some flights that are fifth freedom. So the question for you, for Koyama-san, and for you, Steve, are fifth freedoms coming back? Is this part of a larger trend, or is this, what's the outlook look like from a commercial standpoint and using alliances versus own metal versus traffic rights?
So yes, I'm not sure they ever really went away, but you know, I think it's, from United's perspective, using all the tools available to us to find customers where they are and get them where they want to go. I mentioned the unique nature of United's presence on Guam and the luxury for us of having a 737 aircraft and pilot crew base there, which allows us to come up with new and different ways to serve destinations in the region in partnership with ANA to find people where they are and get them where they want to go. And so I think that's more a function of, you know, the robust nature and the power of networks, the power of connection that I was talking about, than any new groundbreaking policy shift.
Great. Koyama-san.
Since the 1990s, there has been code shares and other alliances have really increased. Therefore, the fifth freedom has, increased back then. However, in my home carriers have been strengthened within their own country. However, recently, LCC usage has really increased quite a bit. So customers are really drawn to that. Therefore, code share partners are not the only options that the customers are offered. Therefore, as a company, we would like to strengthen this function, and we also will use the fifth freedom rights to fly out to other destinations. So these are our thoughts. Again, in other words, we are viewing this as just one of the options. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to maybe move to one of our audience submitted questions, and this relates to this idea we've all heard terms like over-tourism or revenge travel after COVID. So there's been a surge in travel in certain places. I'm going to start with Tamura-san and Cindy here. For Tamura-san, so in terms of as tourist numbers increase in Japan has been a beneficiary of a lot of the growth. What infrastructure improvements and enhancements are you planning to alleviate congestion? I know you talked a little bit about it. And then for Cindy, changes in policies between the U.S. and Japan, how might they impact the liberalization framework that you discussed in your remarks earlier?
Well, as discussed by some other panelists, the Japanese government set their target of the 60 million by the 2030, and actually the most exported products by Japan was automobiles last year. The value was $120 billion, and but their tourism or the consumption by their foreign visitors in Japan was actually $54 billion, and that was more than the semiconductors or the auto parts or steel or whatsoever. So the tourism has become their second largest exporting industry for Japan. And so for the moment, the Japanese government doesn't have the option for restricting the number of the tourists, but we can see their summer cities or local communities where there's the overcrowded situation, and I think the summer communities can take measures for mitigating the over-tourism by introducing the concept of the tourism capacity or tourism carrying capacity, and also the utilizing the land use restrictions or whatever. And actually, the airports have a very little things to do for over tourism, but we can improve the situation by promoting the automation in the boarding processes or the immigration procedures, or also we can enhance the capacity of a baggage handling by introducing the automated baggage handling system, and also maybe we are facing the labor shortage, so now in the ground handling and security checks or whatsoever. So we have to improve the working environment for the workers at the airport, and also we promote the automation and the labor saving in a very accelerated manner. That's for shortage, and then for long term, we're going to expand your capacity.
Great news, Cindy. What about your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. I see we're running low on time, but I would not underestimate all of the work that you're doing at the airports and the importance of the infrastructure changes you're making for seamless flows of tourist traffic, because that's obviously something that you're working on and doing a great job at. And it's obvious demand's increasing, and I think our perspective is we want the carriers to be able to have the flexibility to adjust their networks, their schedules to meet the demands. It's critical that the aviation relationships that we have facilitate that flexibility, and that's why we're working so hard to remove the remaining restrictions on our U.S.-Japan aviation relationship. That's really our focus. And Haneda is the largest U.S. gateway in Japan, and we need to remove those restrictions. And so we look forward to continuing those conversations, and we look forward to opening that slot regime, and we really appreciate our partnership with JCAB on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And in just the remaining few seconds we have, just to quickly summarize, we heard a lot of great things. I think we heard, in the case of uneven demand, uneven recovery of demand presents an opportunity for Japan in that as the market evolves and shifts, it's just ideally located to continue to serve as a pivot point, and it's also, of course, a great destination in and of itself, and origin and destination. We also learned that there are a number of challenges, for example, policy considerations, including the public interest and addressing issues like SAF supply. And with that, we can continue this discussion during the coffee break. I want to thank our panelists again for kindly taking their time to share their thoughts with us, and I will turn it over to Susanna to give us next steps.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate your participation in the panel. We will now have a short 15-minute coffee break in the foyer. We will alert you when it's time to return to your seats and look forward to having you join us for the second panel discussion shortly. We kindly ask that guests please take their seats. Our next panel is ready to begin. The theme for the second panel is addressing the challenges of aviation network expansion in the Asia-Pacific region. We are pleased to have Mr. Rao again as our moderator, and I'll turn the time over to him to introduce the panelists and lead the discussion.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. I'll give you all a moment to filter back into the room. All right. I think we have critical mass or quorum, as they say. Welcome back, and we are now going to continue to our second panel, which, as you may recall, is talking about the challenges in expanding the network. Meaning, earlier we discussed what the opportunity was and how we could achieve it in some ways from a policy standpoint. This is more in terms of talking about the specifics of what the challenges are in terms of expanding the network. And just a bit of background here on this particular topic. Of course, aviation consists of policies and regulations and laws, but it also consists of a lot of nuts and bolts kinds of things, like we talked about pavement. Steve Morrissey in the first panel talked about air traffic control as an important piece. But there are also other important components to this. One, probably first and foremost, are qualified personnel. Trained professionals like pilots, mechanics, ground handlers, and so many others require extensive training, require skill, they require qualifications. So that is a consideration and a huge factor in what it will take to achieve this potential, this promise of expanded opportunity. But there's also other challenges that have kind of emerged during and since the pandemic, which is supply chain issues. I think the delays and challenges facing both of the large aircraft manufacturers, Airbus and Boeing, are well known to most. And then, of course, there are other long-term persistent issues. We heard a bit about the challenges of producing sustainable aviation fuel at scale and at a price point that makes it economical to use on a routine basis. And so this panel, we have a very distinguished panel, and I encourage you to look at their bios because all of them have an interesting path to how they reached their current position. Mr. Yap Ong Heng, Senior Advisor to the Ministry of Transport of Singapore, has held many key positions within his ministry, served in his country's Air Force. Ms. Rieko Nakayama, Deputy Director General at the Japan Civil Aviation Bureau and the Ministry of Land Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism, also has had a storied career within her ministry since joining it, including serving as in international affairs in rail, leading her ministry's tourism office in Paris for 3 years. Ms. Ron Salmond had a career in private practice as a lawyer, and then in the most recent FAA reauthorization bill, FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024, Ron's played a key role in negotiating that bill. And now he's, of course, at American Airlines as the Managing Director for International Government Affairs. Mr. Tadashi Matsushita, Executive Vice President, Industrial and Government Relations, has also had a storied career at ANA, including leading government affairs and commercial efforts here in Washington, D.C., which is the first time I met him. And finally, but last but not least, certainly, Bob Letney, Vice President, International Government Affairs at Delta, also his path took him through Capitol Hill and the House of Representatives, served in the Obama administration in several capacities. So with that, let me turn it over, starting with Mr. Yap, to provide some initial remarks, and we will have a panel discussion afterwards. Thanks.
Chairman Shukuri, distinguished panelists, just wanted to start off by highlighting that Singapore, as an even smaller island state, aviation is a critical enabler for our connectivity, our economic growth, and for raising the living standards of our people. And I would even say that aviation is a lifeline for Singapore. Now, as we move on to talk about the larger ASEAN, which comprises the 10 Southeast Asian nations, ASEAN has adopted a vision to create an ASEAN economic community. And for realizing this ASEAN economic community, aviation is also going to be a key element to advance economic development and to provide for shared prosperity. So just to highlight the critical importance of aviation to Singapore as well as the whole ASEAN region. Now, the future of aviation is certainly bright. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, has forecasted that aviation, in terms of passenger volumes, will double by 2043. And out of this growth, 50% will be in the Asia-Pacific region. So as we are poised for tremendous growth in aviation, there are also headwinds ahead that we need to contend with. So in positioning ourselves to capture the opportunities from aviation growth, we must also address the challenges that will come our way. Just let me highlight a few key challenges, and these ranges from some high-level areas to the very technical areas. So starting off, of course, is continuing to enhance connectivity. Here, I would say that the critical challenge is that there are many air services agreements between countries and between regions that are still not liberal. And I think this presents a challenge, especially for airlines who would want to be able to have the full flexibility to be able to respond to market demand. So this is one key challenge that unfortunately I think has been there for a very long time. Of course, the other key challenge is in ensuring aviation safety. The record for aviation safety has, I think, been improving over the years. But unfortunately, as we saw in just the end of last year and the beginning of this year, it is quite clear that we cannot take aviation safety for granted. And if there is an aviation incident or an air accident, the confidence in air travel will be affected. So aviation safety is a foundation for air travel, and we must certainly address it. The other key challenge is capacity, and specifically capacity constraints. Here I'm talking about constraints in airports, and that also affects the efficiency of moving passengers through the airport. But there is also capacity constraints in the air. There is a need to see how we can deal with the increasingly crowded skies. And of course, the last key challenge that I should mention is that we need aviation to grow sustainably. It is not sufficient for us just to continue to push aviation growth. It is important that we also ensure that there is environmental sustainability and decarbonization. Climate change is no longer a future threat. It is already with us, as we can see from the many weather events that have taken place all over the world. So it is important for aviation also to do its part in combating climate change. I just would like to end off by saying that I think in addressing these challenges, and I will be very happy to discuss what we can do about them later, the need for collaboration, among countries across the globe, among all stakeholders in the aviation ecosystem is very important. And here, of course, Japan, ASEAN, and the United States, we have very strong collaboration, but we can also extend this to many other partners in order to address the various challenges and realize the growth ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yap. Nakayama-san, would you care to share some thoughts? I know you just give a keynote speech, but would you care to add some thoughts on top challenges?
Yes, I'd like to talk about just quickly about the challenges we're facing. The first is shortage of human resources, and including ground handlers and the pilot and air traffic controllers and aircraft mechanics and so on and so forth. And the second one is carbon neutrality, including self-production. And the third one is capacity of airport and airspaces.
Thank you, Nakayama-san. So Rance, I understand you have a presentation you'd like to show us.
Yeah, if I can bring this slide deck up. Let's see. Well, before I get started, I just want to say thank you for JITTI and Mr. Chairman. I just, my hat's off to you and your team who've done an incredible job to pull this conference together. I've been going to these JITTI conferences for over almost 2 decades now, and since I was just a young associate. And I want to congratulate JITTI for putting these conferences together because they see towards the future. And I remember back in around 2010 when we were looking at these conferences about what it means to liberalize Haneda at that time, and John Byerly was running around town doing his thing. And it was that forward-looking perspective that these symposiums allow that is so important. So congratulations to you. And I've worn many hats in my career. My favorite one is tourism. And so being a tourist in Tokyo under your incredible hosting, Assistant Vice Minister, was really a pleasure and honor. And to the 2.7 million Americans that have made it over to Japan last year, add me to the list again because I want to go back. Tokyo was so fantastic, and I put my running shoes on and I stayed at a hotel near the U.S. Embassy and made my way over to the Meiji Shrine, the Meiji Jinju, and it's one of those beautiful urban spots you can find in the world where the trees are rising, there's a path, and it's quiet and contemplative, and you go there, but then you start thinking about the history of a place like that. You look back to 1868 and the Meiji Restoration, and the reason that happened, and why the United States and Japan and its initial involvement in touch points, and the role of technology and industrialization, and the growth of that relationship over the years. And I'm proud to be sitting here today to know that aviation is part of the sector that brings our peoples together and our communities and our cultures. And it's a really incredible tale. And when we talk about some things we've talked about today already, I mean, we talked about the open skies agreements. And I would go back a generation before that to deregulation. And so you go to deregulation, and a generation later you have open skies, and a generation later we're here. And I think we have to look forward to where are we going next in terms of global aviation, and I think it's to be determined. And part of it's going to be the challenges that we're facing right now. So bringing this conference together in this panel to talk about challenges, I think, is completely appropriate, and hopefully this dialogue can help us look forward to the future. But we are facing some challenges, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. So one of the things we've discovered after post-COVID is that we haven't gotten quite back there, right? In Asia, Europe, and other places, we've seen the rebound fully articulate itself and realize. But in Asia, we haven't surpassed our pre-pandemic levels. Part of that is because of particular markets. It's been an uneven rebound, and thankfully for places like Japan and Korea, we've seen a full restoration of demand and capacity. Therefore, but in places like we've talked about in the prior panel, places like China, we still see some challenges in terms of getting that capacity back, getting that demand back. And there's a number of reasons potentially for that. We've talked about some of the geopolitical problems and challenges that we have between the United States and China, and maybe that's flowing down into, for example, business travel and how that and tourism in general. So we have to think about that incredibly huge and important Chinese market moving forward. If you look at the numbers from Boeing, I mean, if one half of the aircraft produced in the world in the next 20 years could be going into the Chinese market. So this is a place where we know demand is going to be. So what does that mean for the global aviation market? Why do we have such challenges in the Asia Pacific and growing our networks there? Well, there's different reasons. One of them is opportunity cost, right? Working for an airline and understanding, we got 130,000 people. We operate over 60 countries, 350 destinations. It's challenging, and deciding where those wide-body aircraft go is a pretty big decision for a company that's constrained in its capacity and its fleet. I mean, we have 1,500 aircraft, but when you get down to the wide-body fleet, it's very limited. And part of that is compounded by the aircraft delays in our supply chain. And let's just face it, but Boeing's had its challenges, Airbus has had its own challenges, and so that impacts our ability to grow long-haul networks. And it's doing a route like Haneda to JFK. That requires a dedication of a specific aircraft and of course highly trained crew that are associated with that. I mentioned it before, but it's worth mentioning again. Trade relations are important, and when there's difficulties in trade relations, that impacts our ability to grow the business. And so, addressing those trade relations and those challenges and complexities there will be important to growing our networks. And we talked about it already again, but it bears worth repeating. The Russian overflight situation is critical, a critical impediment to our ability to grow our networks. Why? Because of operational cost. I mean, the fuel cost and crew cost alone make it a hard decision to operate certain routes. We've seen that on the European side with some of the European carriers pulling out of the Chinese market because of operation costs and the ability not to compete evenly on those markets. And we heard from our colleagues from United how there's some concerns there as well. So it's a challenge, and I don't want to get into the Russian overflight just a little bit to illustrate those challenges. So if you look at our flights heading into Europe and then off to West Asia, you can see the kind of myriad of challenges we face in terms of where we can operate and where we can't operate, and how that impacts our ability to fly the most efficient routes. So these no-fly zones, these SFARs and NOTAMs, restrict our ability to operate in international airspace at the most efficient places. So it's, you could see that blue line is our Delhi route from JFK. We have to be careful, right? We've seen that the threat to air navigation is real. We went through that again 2 generations ago with KAL 007, led to Article 3 bis in the Chicago Convention. So these are lessons that we repeatedly learned throughout history of aviation, how critical it is to maintain safety in air navigation. So it's an inhibitor to our ability to fly. You know, if you look at Western Russia, that's where the threats are. You know, whether it's missile launches, airstrikes, other things, you know, these are things that our security teams have to deal with and understand in terms of what it means to operate heading into the Pacific region, the Asia-Pacific region, you know, from the West. But when you look out to the eastern part of Russian airspace, the threat level, it decreases. I mention that only because it potentially, if there's an opportunity for lifting restriction on airspace for U.S. operations in Russia, maybe the East is easier than the West. And we talked about it last panel, but this may illustrate it further, the difficulties in going to the Asia-Pacific when you can't operate in Russian airspace and how that impacts our ability to, again, have efficient operations into places like Incheon, Haneda, and Narita. So, you know, these are some of just, I concentrate on the Russian overflight issue because it's just one issue and these slides can bear it out. But there's other things we talked about, you know, supply chain and opportunity costs, et cetera. But happy to talk. I'm sorry I had to start with challenges. We can get to solutions later, but wanted to lay that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Matsushita-san, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I make my short presentation, I'd like to highlight an exciting event coming up next month. Equally exciting as Cherry Blossom Festival here in Washington, D.C. From April 13th, the World Expo will be held in Osaka, Japan. And ANA is proud to be the official supporter of this great event. We believe Expo will be the hub of wisdom and collaboration, and we are thrilled to support its mission. So if you are traveling to Japan, if you plan to come to Japan, please consider ANA as your airline. We would be honored to welcome you on board. The theme of today's symposium highlights Japan's critical role as a pivotal hub connecting two vital regions. Looking ahead, passenger demand between Asia-Pacific region, especially North America and ASEAN, is projected to more than double. A little different from my the viewpoint from my colleague from American, but we are more optimistic about the future demand. Specifically, we anticipate an 80% increase by 2030 and staggering 140% increase by 2040 compared to 2023 demand level. ANA recognizes the importance of meeting this soaring demand by ensuring efficient, smooth, and comfortable transportation of both passenger and cargo. This is crucial not only for ANA's growth going forward, but also our contribution on the Japanese economy and hopefully make some positive impact on the global basis as well. By the way, we were honored to receive the prestigious Airline of the Year award from Air Transport World for 2025. And also, we achieved a 5-star rating by Skytrax for 12 consecutive years. We take pride in these accomplishments, but when it comes to the available seat kilometer ranking, globally, ANA is on 24th. Ranking is 24th globally. This is not good enough. I have to admit that the scale of our international route network and connectivity lags behind those of global hub airlines in the world. If you can take a look at the hub structure here, the Turkish Airlines Istanbul Airport, Singapore Airlines at Changi, Korean Asiana at Incheon, versus our hub structure at Narita Airport and Haneda. It's obvious that we need to add capacity going forward and work on the connectivity more. In fact, we are committed to actively invest in the resources and to strengthen this hub structure going forward. However, we face primarily three challenges going forward. Firstly, there's an issue of aircraft delivery. The current instability of aircraft industry supply chain is a significant concern to us. We're witnessing delays in component supply, escalating raw material costs, and logistical disruptions. And to achieve our planned fleet renewal and route expansion, it's absolutely critical that aircraft deliveries adhere to their scheduled timelines. Secondly, we must address the growing challenge of a labor shortage. In Japan, working age population is projected to decline at a significant 17% by 2040. This is an unavoidable trend, and ANA is actively investing in securing necessary resources going forward to support the aviation industry. But adding to this concern is the anticipated mass retirement of pilots and mechanics within Japanese aviation sector in the next decade. This demographic, primarily those in the 50s, represents a substantial portion of our current workforce. Approximately 40% of our pilots at the moment is over 50. As we look to expand our international routes, this looming pilot shortage poses a significant bottleneck. And finally, the fragmentation of aviation decarbonization. CORSIA was meant to be the global framework, but we're seeing the conflicting local rules. So instead of unified approach, we have a double burden due to overlapping regulations. The EU, European Union SAC mandate, impacting even non-EU airlines exemplifies this, creating extra costs and conflicting with CORSIA. The EU also hints at expanding EU ETS to international flights. This creates an uneven playing field. We need a consistent global framework to enable effective and fair decarbonization. Collaboration is essential. Thank you.
Thank you, Matsushita-san. And now I'll turn it over to Bob Letney of Delta.
Thank you, Naveen. I'd like to add my thanks to Chairman Shukuri and the JITTI team. Like Rance, I've been coming to these for over 2 decades, and we at Delta appreciate the invite. I think this particular forum is extremely timely. Aviation is all over the media, and I'm going to try to get through my presentation as quickly as possible so we can get to discussion, because I really think the Q&A and discussion is really important. I also want to thank Naveen and recognize Naveen. You couldn't have found a better moderator, not only on knowledge of transportation and aviation, but also Japan and Japanese. He spent his entire career really looking at these issues, but also has a deep understanding of the region. So, kudos to you and thanks again. So I'm not going to get right into challenges. I do want to give a little bit of an overview of the Delta network, and then we can talk a little bit about challenges. But I want to give a brief kind of snapshot of how we serve Asia Pacific. Let me start with Haneda. So we have 6 gateways into Haneda: Atlanta, Detroit, Minneapolis, Seattle, LA, and Honolulu, all with service into Haneda. And I think Nakayama-san mentioned 39 million passengers in 2024, tourism passengers. Cindy, 9.2 million maybe Americans go over. We have seen a huge increase since 2019, 40% increase in travel to Japan. Japan, for Delta, has really become a point-to-point market. The way we serve Asia is through Incheon. We do not have a Japanese partner, unlike our competitors. We partner with Korean Air. That partnership helps get folks into Asia, but it also helps people get into Japan. So we serve 13 additional markets through Incheon, from Sapporo to Osaka to Fukuoka and others. Last year, I think it was about 45,000 passengers that connected at Incheon back into Japan, which is good, really good for tourism. So just on the next slide, despite not having a Japanese partner, we still have the bulk of our seat capacity going into Japan. Japan's 36% of our seats, as you can see from the pie chart here. Korea, 32%. China, which we'll get to in a little bit, just 13%. Taipei, 6%. And South Pacific, 13%. Because we're a point-to-point market, unlike some of our competitors, and maybe ANA, we're not flowing a lot of traffic over Japan into Asia, so the traffic is actually staying in Japan. So 88% of our traffic gets off the plane in Tokyo. Another 8% actually connects on Japanese airlines through interline agreements to go other places in Japan. So about 96% of traffic on our planes is staying in Japan, which is good news for travel and tourism between our countries. I think Steve had a similar slide, but on the U.S. side, this really shows how we're connecting people, broad coverage from across the United States into Japan and Asia Pacific. Really, the reach of Delta's network can really get you anywhere. These are all major hubs, so you can get one stop to Japan quite quickly. And then just quickly, 2024 year of U.S.-Japan tourism, through the leadership of our president over there, Victor Osumi, did a lot of events supporting sister cities, Fukuoka, Atlanta, sports teams, different educational things. So we look forward to continuing promoting travel and tourism to hopefully try to reach that 2030 goal. I'm not going to get into all of the aviation challenges because I think we can get into that through the discussion. But bringing Haneda into full open skies, we'll talk a little bit about that. We've already talked about the lack of demand, really, between the U.S. and China, and Rance did an excellent job on the Russia overflight issue. But look into getting into the questions, and thank you again for having us.
Thank you, Bob. So I think we heard some really interesting perspectives from each of our panelists. And, we began these presentations talking about what are the challenges. And we heard quite a few, including but not limited to capacity, a aging workforce, a workforce pipeline, overflight, and a number of other things. So starting with that, I'm going to actually turn it to our two panelists that traveled the furthest to be here today, Mr. Yap and Ms. Nakayama-san. Just in terms of the barriers to connectivity, starting maybe with Nakayama-san first, can you share some of the initiatives that your ministry and agencies are undertaking in the Asia Pacific region And I think on your slide, you showed some of the things that you're doing on the airport infrastructure. Why don't we start with you, and then I'm going to turn to Mr. Yap.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to talk about the challenge we are facing. Particularly, I would like to explain what we have been doing to address the issue of the shortage of the workforce. And actually, the biggest challenge we faced right after the pandemic was the shortage of ground handlers. And as an immediate response, the aviation industry has been working on to improve working conditions and wage levels. It's just like it's a kind of straightforward way. And also, our ministry is also supporting efforts by the industry for recruitment of ground handlers, such as holding joint job fairs or aviation workforce at each airport. But at the same time, we also expect to face the issue of shortage of other type of aviation personnel like pilots and aircraft mechanics. And so we are now working on about some kind of reform about those with regard to those personnel. So I would like to explain some example, and the one is reforming the qualification of aircraft mechanics for the effective use of human resources, or streamlining the training process by introducing a more expedited pilot training program, or expanding the talent pool by increasing the number of female pilots, for example. And another approach, apart from some regulatory reform, another approach could be the introduction of labor-saving technology. And for example, the other day, I have a chance to visit and inspect a new type of towing machine at Osaka Itami Airport, and actually together with a delegation from CS, Singapore. And so with this new machine, so there is no longer to drive the towing car. And instead, the big aircraft can be pushed back by operating just a small tablet. So one of the very big advantage about this, the introduction of this new machine is, I heard that is a training period for workers can be significantly shortened compared to conventional towing cars, which the driver need, which requires drivers. And also, I would like to touch upon the importance of capacity building for countries in even more serious constraints. So last year, we provided Pacific Islands countries as a capacity building program. But I understand that Singapore has more experience in supporting capacity building for Asian countries. So I would like to learn more about from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nakayama-san. Yes, I actually was going to say the same thing, that Singapore is kind of in the heart of ASEAN. It is a commercial hub. It is home to Singapore Airlines, which is globally recognized as frankly an iconic airline. And so within your region, you identified a number of challenges. How is Singapore working to address them?
I'll go straight to the point on the challenge with respect to connectivity and air services. For Singapore, like the US, which has its open skies policy, we have adopted a liberal air services policy. And that means that we would like to enter into liberal air services agreements with other countries or group of countries. Here, 60 of our air services agreements with other countries are open skies, and we certainly aim to conclude more of these. But this also extends to ASEAN. We have been working with the other ASEAN countries in terms of liberal air services regime for ASEAN. In 2009, we concluded the basic agreements, and then over time, intra-ASEAN, we are also open skies already. And because of that, we have now started to move to have agreements between ASEAN and other countries and other regional blocs. So for example, ASEAN already has an air transport agreement with China, and we have also an air transport agreement with the European Union. And this is the first bloc-to-bloc air transport agreement in the world. So these agreements, I think, have allowed to move slightly more into creating, the flexibility for airlines to fly, between countries and between regions. The next area that I should talk about is on capacity constraints, and here I would like to echo what Nakayama said about manpower shortage. I mean, when you talk about capacity constraint, it is not just about the infrastructure and so on. The manpower shortage also plays a part. Here, of course, in Singapore and in many of the ASEAN countries, we are all going through a development expansion phase for our airports. But the problem is that when you build airports, when you expand airports, it takes a long time. So what is now needed is to try and optimize the capacity that you have now in the sort of airports that the various countries have. And here again, I echo what Nakayama said, that I think what is necessary is now to use innovation and technology, improve productivity, improve efficiency, basically trying to sort of milk whatever capacity you can get from the infrastructure and the resources currently available. So in Singapore, we are very, very keen to work with partners. We have, for example, set up an international center for aviation innovation to work with partners on transformational solutions for airports and various other areas in order to be able to remove the constraints. We have also set up an international aviation lab in Changi Airport. And here again, we want to work with partners, pool resources and expertise, again, to come up with solutions for airports. All this to try and basically create more capacity and to try and improve efficiency. And this helps also with the manpower shortage, because if you have automation, digitalization, now the use of artificial intelligence, many other new technological areas, this can certainly address the constraint before us. In the case of the skies, constraints in the skies, here again, Singapore is developing the next generation air navigation system, something that we think is very important in order to be able to ensure, again, capacity and efficiency for air traffic. But more than that, within ASEAN, we have agreed on a seamless ASEAN Sky approach. And here, backing it up, is Air Navigation Services Master Plan that we have developed with various elements where we want to see the various ASEAN countries implementing these various elements that will certainly reach seamless ASEAN skies. And I just now would just move to sustainability. It is quite clear that there is a need to balance between aviation growth and aviation sustainability and decarbonization. We can't move, towards one end or the other. Because if we focus on just environmental sustainability, we dampen growth, this will have a significant impact on economic development and so forth and so on. So in Singapore, we believe very strongly that there is a need to balance aviation growth and aviation sustainability, aviation decarbonization. So we have developed what we call a sustainable air hub blueprint. It has various goals and targets. It has also various measures that we would like to implement to achieve this. With that, we have also, under our chairmanship of the ASEAN Air Transport Working Group, worked with all the other ASEAN countries to develop the ASEAN Sustainable Aviation Action Plan. And again, this action plan will bring all ASEAN countries again on this journey of growing aviation sustainably. And one very key area is the use of sustainable aviation fuels. And I understand that will be, again, a question later. I go back to really the fundamental, aviation safety. In all that we do in growing aviation, we must put aviation safety as the key priority. And here, I would say that there is a need to constantly look at the aviation regime, safety regime, the aviation safety oversight, and even more important, aviation safety culture. In Singapore, we got all the chief executives of the major aviation companies in Singapore to sign on to an aviation safety charter. That was when we were recovering from COVID-19 pandemic, and we felt that it was very important that as the aviation ramps up, it is very important that there is a very strong culture in the whole aviation ecosystem prioritizing aviation safety. And this again is something that we have moved to broaden it to across the ASEAN. And now we have 5 of the ASEAN countries coming together to share safety data and information. This will help us to identify safety risks, safety hazards, safety trends. And the main idea is to try and prevent an incident or accident from happening. So these are the various ways that, the various initiatives we have taken in order to address the various challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. So now I'm going to pivot over to the left side of the stage, my left. And so we have on the stage several of the leading airlines from Japan and the United States, and each of your companies, respective companies, have unique business models, unique fleets, different networks, different strategies. So from each of your perspectives, Matsushita-san, Bob, and Rance, can you share just what collaborative initiatives you would like the governments of Japan, the U.S., Singapore, and ASEAN to undertake in response to addressing the things we've discussed? Whoever would like to start.
I'll start, I guess. No, excellent question. I'll go back to my last slide, the first point there. I think the goal is to increase tourism, increase connectivity, not only to Japan but beyond Japan. And I think it's less a challenge than an opportunity. I think there's an opportunity, and the governments have done an incredible job. There's been a lot of progress, but there's an opportunity to bring Haneda fully into open skies. And I'm sure most folks in the audience know, but Haneda is really an outlier when you look globally. Governments negotiate access for the airlines. The governments decide where we can fly, how often we can fly. It is really a throwback to pre-open skies. And I think there's an opportunity to better match passenger demand with different gateways. I think bringing Haneda into open skies, Heidi had mentioned about operational flexibility and open code share, gateway flexibility, liberalized slot regime. It's still pretty highly restrictive. So I think, I'll just close with, I think there's an opportunity that presents itself to the government really for the benefit of passengers. I mean, that's what we're about, right? It needs to be in the public interest, and clearly bringing Haneda fully into open skies, I think, is not only in the U.S. interest, but into Japan and ASEAN's interest.
Thanks, Bob. Matsushita-san?
Yes. I touched upon the issue on pilot and mechanic shortage. To meet growth targets, we need 10% more pilots and 20% mechanics going forward. You know, there's no silver bullet to solve this issue. You know, the efficient use of resources, more productivity, improving training, expanding recruitment, and potentially by raising retirement ages in Japan. And in terms of pilot, we believe that there are areas where the government can take the lead in establishing global standards in a more collaborative manner. I know this is a sensitive matter in the United States, but pilot shortage will hinder future business growth, and we need to approach this matter taking the interest of various stakeholders into account. So we strongly support the Japanese government's joint proposal with Canada and other nations at the ICAO Air Navigation Conference to raise the pilot age limit based on advancements in medical and aviation technology and improved health and operational safety. Given Japan's future demographic challenges, this is a crucial matter for Japanese airlines. And we urge all governments and ICAO to demonstrate strong leadership on this matter. And you know, my colleagues here have touched upon the Russian overflying Russian airspace. We feel the same. It's you know, this relates to the labor shortage matter as well, because our current European route require approximately 40% more resources because of you know, avoiding Russian airspace, and in terms of fuel, an approximate 20% increase. So in terms of decarbonization as well, this is a very critical matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rance.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and hopefully this gets the, you know, my bit on solutions. And I think one of them is just in front of us, which is to continue the open skies policy. I mean, I mean, I say that out loud as if it's a matter of fact, but as we know in this world, policies change very quickly. So I would say, you know, please maintain open skies as an approach to air traffic and liberalization. And you know, in general, lowering the barriers to entry for air operations, you know, I wasn't disagreeing with you in terms of the market. I think the demand side is there in the Asia Pacific. It's the supply side that where we run into issues. And so if we can lower the barriers to entry, whether that's on slots, taxes and fees, we've talked about, you know, different regulatory approaches to decarbonization, which are not helpful. You know, there's other ways, one-stop security, a program that TSA is unveiling. These are type of things that can help facilitate travel. Of course, visas, ensuring that there's timely issuance of visas and making sure the State Department has the capacity and folks to allow that to happen. And, it gets back to why on the supply side, some of the fixes that we've seen over time. I mean, if you look at the whole alliance structure and networks we have today, in a way, it's creative design around barriers to entry and regulatory hurdles, right? Whether it's ownership and control of a U.S. carrier or, national security concerns or, traffic rights. These code shares and ATI and et cetera are ways that the market has responded to these barriers to entry. And so I think you'll continue to see creative commercial arrangements. And I would say to governments and bodies that are overseeing this, like, allow of course the consumers benefit in the public interest, allow this experimentation to continue, because this is the airlines responding to what the cards they're given. And so we've seen the joint ventures and we've seen ATI, and I think we need to ensure that there's a common regulatory approach on some of these issues, so that each time an alliance member is going into a different market, they're facing the same type of scrutiny as opposed to some type of disparate world where we have to meet different tests wherever we go. And and of course I'd be remiss not to say thank you to our critical partners like Japan Airlines, Fiji, Qantas, others that help us in Asia Pacific. But again, this alliance structure, I think, will continue to develop and grow, and I think it's part of unlocking the secret of the next 20 years in terms of global aviation. And finally, back to standardization. It goes without saying, but we had the ICAO Assembly this year, and it's really important the role ICAO plays in providing a common framework for the world and harmonized standards and different approaches, and ensuring that we are connected. And this predates. The Chicago Convention predates the close of World War II. So we've been at this for a long time, and that's why I'm so proud that Japan has put forward Ambassador Numa. And it is my hope and desire that Numa-san is able to be elected as the president of ICAO, because I think his type of background and skill set that he brings from his long career from a technical side, from a safety side. He can bring that type of leadership that I think that we need at ICAO, and we need to ensure that ICAO plays a leading role in global aviation in order to have that safe and orderly growth that is part of the Chicago Convention's mission for ICAO.
Thank you, Ron. So we are fast approaching time. So what I'm going to do is jump to the question from the audience that we received, and then try to do a quick summary wrap up. So the question we received relates to, and it's been mentioned, it was the tragedy on January 29th here near DC, and then several others. But the event here sadly broke a streak of 16 years of accident-free aviation, commercial aviation, and as I think Mr. Yap said, made the point very clearly. Safety is the North Star for all of this. If without a safe system, none of this exists. Nothing else really matters. So it's the paramount consideration. So maybe starting with Nakayama-san, and if you could maybe say words about the cooperation between your regulators, Singapore and Japan, to say a few words about what's being done on safety, and then time permitting, we'll hear from our airline panelists.
Yes, so with regard to safety, so I would like to point out the importance of making use of the lessons learned from the actual aircraft accident for further safety of aviation. And so as you know, in Japan, a tragic accident occurred in January last year. So which was a plane crash accident on the runway at Haneda Airport. And although the accident is still under the investigation by the Japan Transport Safety Board, but we are now we already took some actions based on the factors believed to have caused it. And so in addition, we are now preparing a legislation bill to promote more safety. And so I believe that it is also important to learn from accidents occurred in other countries as well. So in that, with this regard, I think we can cooperate with other countries and governments to increase the safety.
Mr. Yap, would you like to say a few words?
Well, I would just like to say that Singapore and Japan, we closely cooperate on all aviation matters. We entered into a high-level strategic framework arrangement in 2022. And then under that arrangement, essentially, Singapore and Japan, we cooperate on everything in aviation. And when it comes to safety, we share best practices, we share lessons learned. In fact, a team from Singapore just visited Japan and learn about some of the things that the Japanese are doing. For example, in terms of empowering all aviation personnel to look out for safety issues and so on, and to report them or to address them. We think that's very important. You create a very strong safety mindset among all aviation personnel, something that Singapore wants to learn from Japan. And the cooperation, as I say, extends to many other areas, including, for example, air traffic management. I think Ms. Nakayama mentioned in her opening remarks or basically her keynote speech about trajectory-based operations project, which I think is going to revolutionize air traffic management. Thanks.
Thanks. And I know we are actually at time, so but I do want to give a moment to our airline colleagues to make a comment. I know, Ron, this is something you worked on, it's affected your airline, and then I will conclude.
Yeah, no, thank you. And first of all, I want to express my gratitude to everybody in the room and our speakers that have spoke such kind words with regard to the accident. AA Flight 5346 is a moment in time. It's a moment in history. It's a moment to learn from. First and foremost, it's a moment for the families of the victims. We had 67 people that were killed, and until you live through one of those moments, it's hard to describe the pain and the anguish that's associated with it. And I dealt with the Colgan families and the Max families and others in legislative reforms and safety reform, but I never understood it in this way. And so my heart goes out to all that really suffered from this accident directly. And one thing that I learned is that through time, our aviation system has created nets to capture, sadly, these instances. And that includes having a family assistance plan that airlines have to enable them, the go teams that are available to make this, to action when something like this happens. My hat's off to the NTSB and the first responder community, which are incredible professionals and face just in the extreme circumstances in dealing with a tragedy like this. And so we have the opportunity to learn from this, and I know we will. And air traffic control modernization is absolutely critical as a part of that. We have over 3,000 controllers short of what we need. We looked at it in the FAA reauthorization bill. We tried to do what we could. You have a pipeline. You can either expand, you can either thicken the pipeline in the middle, you can get more people in the front end, or you can extend the pipeline on the back end in terms of like pilot age or other things like that. On the front end, getting more people in, that means recruiting women and other people that are underserved in terms of our aviation pipeline. And in the middle, increasing pay. We had at American itself deals with our labor unions over the last year to make it more attractive to be working in aviation. But for our air traffic controllers, we absolutely need to do a better job in recruiting and building that workforce, building the capacity in Oklahoma City in terms of the academy, and getting the best first-in-class technology into our systems. And I know that Congress is invested in this. Thankfully, the President has focused on this, and Secretary Duffy is also made this a priority. So it's getting the attention it deserves, and we just need to carry through and make sure this happens and learn from others like our friends in Japan in terms of what we can do better to make safety, because safety impacts all of us, and it should be ultimately our North Star.
Thank you, Rance. So with that, I will just quickly summarize. I think we heard a lot about the challenges that exist, whether they're workforce related or related to sustainability, and I think everyone agrees safety. I think I will conclude by observing that civil aviation international civil aviation uniquely requires collaboration and cooperation across borders. And it extends from like runway signage, but also to all of the topics that we heard here, whether it's producing fuel in adequate quantities, ensuring that we learn lessons from the tragedies of January 29th. And so with that, I think, I think the future, with the hard lessons learned, future's bright. I think there are a lot of people here that are working hard towards realizing these goals and preventing future tragedies. And with that, let me thank the panelists for their time, and then turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your valuable insights. This is the end of our program. We would appreciate your feedback if you could please complete the survey at your seats or via an email, which will be sent shortly. The content of the symposium will be posted on our website, jtusa.org, in the next few days for anyone interested in viewing. We will also be sharing some of the slides as well. If you enjoyed this symposium and would like to stay informed of our upcoming events, please join our mailing list or follow us on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. A reception will now begin in the foyer. Thank you very much for attending this symposium today, and please have a wonderful evening.